Yeah, Guyana sing, yeah, Guyana sing, yeah, Guyana sing. One day I've been down with Ghana, and the spicy Tyra on the down. And me ask Sitara what she a do there. Sitara eyes up, she goes and wine like a box done good. Oh Sitara mo mande, 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 oh Sitara mo mande.
Lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, what make your brazen so? Lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, what make your brazen so? I've been funny down and a man hold me down, it I make a brazen so. I've been funny down and a man hold me hand, it I make a brazen so. Look at Nari, let she marry, who go marry, put one go ring, stupid go ring. Stupid lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, what make your braces so? Lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, lily gal, what make your braces so?
Long, long time, Jenny girl, I we not go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down. All them boys say, Jenny girl, I we not go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down. Long, long time, Jenny girl, I we not go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down, Jenny girl, come let me go back down.
Sango licky love up on the dam and the girl holla murder. Sango licky love up on the dam and the girl holla murder. Rip rap police come and the girl holla murder. Rip rap police come and the girl holla murder. Rip rap police come and the girl holla murder. Rip rap police come and the girl holla murder.
Morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning. I don't want your son, I've been morning. When you've been a corruption, you not been tell me morning. No, because your money done, you are hustle for tell me morning. Morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning. I don't want your son, I've been morning. One bunch we planted, one string for quarry. One chill black pepper, it's all the money that I want for. Morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning. I don't want you when I get morning. For the morning cock-a-crow, here are the best of color. I jump on the way, how we go. Here are the best, here are the best, here are the best of color. Here are the best, here are the best, here are the best of color. Wash your holla, wash your holla, wash your holla. Wash your holla, wash your holla, wash your holla. Here are the best, here are the best, here are the best of color. Here are the best, here are the best, here are the best of color.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire, make so, make so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire, make so, make so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire, make so, you make so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire, make so, you make so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire, make so, you make so.
Man come home and the food not ready.
Bamboo fire, make so, make so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire, make so, you make so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire, make so, you make so. One day I'm in down way now, and the spicy fire up on the down. And me ask Sitara what she gonna do there. Sitira high some she coat and wine like a Buxton good. Oh Sitira Momande, 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 oh Sitira Momande. Here Guyana sing, here Guyana sing, here Guyana sing.
Oh yes, Itaria Momande. Good evening to all of you and welcome to Politics 101 on a Monday evening. Sitario, I noticed was in full bloom on the Parkway in Brooklyn today. I saw you all Guyanese and other West Indians getting on bad. Labor Day in Brooklyn. Labor Day in Brooklyn. I saw, I watched some of y'all, Denise Booker. She not here yet. Yeah, she there. Danette, you there far. See this Super Ray and you all get on bad. Well, you know, that's Labor Day in Brooklyn. Labor Day in Brooklyn. It's traditional. And it was good to see our people having a good time over the last couple of days. And you know, man shall not live by bread alone. You know, we have to take some time out and party, have a good time. That's part of our culture. That's part of what makes us Caribbean, what makes us Guyanese, and so happy Labor Day to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Those of you who are joining us from New York, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx. Welcome. Those of you who are joining us from Washington, D.C., Paulette, Greaves. Good evening to you, sister. Good evening to all of you who are joining us from other parts of the United States of America. It's Labor Day today. And, you know, people are getting out the grill and all that stuff and having a good time. Good evening to all of you. Tonight we are going to be kicking it. We have, for the first time on, the mayor of Georgetown on the program. I've been threatening Mr. Mentore to come on to this program now for years. And every time I see him, I say, well, I ain't forget you. He said, I'm waiting on you. You know, God don't come, that's what he just said. As you all know, the mayor and city council passed a bill. I don't know if it's a bill they call it there, but the mayor will correct me. But they took a decision at the council to institute a 25% payment of rates and taxes for political parties and other non-governmental organizations, political parties and other non-governmental organizations. And lo and behold, a firestorm was raised by the PPP. The first day the thing came out, they say, oh, the thing was passed to help the PNC pay off $6 billion in back rates and taxes. $6 billion. Before the end of the day, the report was backpedaled and so on. And I read the thing closely. I said, well, what kind of story is this bill, this decision, is it on arrears? Because if the PNC owes $6 billion, that's arrears. But when I look at the thing closely, I see nothing about arrears and all of that stuff. But the thing smell bad. It smell, stink, and dirty, like the things that the PPP just throw our way. And so I decided that we're going to do a program today. We're going to get the mayor on. I expect later on the chairman of the finance committee, Lelon Saul, to join us, but the mayor is here and he's ready to go. Those of you who bother to read the daily newspapers would have noticed in today's Stabrook News there was a letter there by the mayor, Mr. Alfred Mentore, clarifying for us a lot of the issues. And we're going to be discussing the contents of that letter here tonight with Mayor Alfred Mentore. And we're going to take the opportunity, if time permits us, to talk about the wider problem of local government, especially as it relates to the separation of powers between the central government and the local government. Our constitution makes allowance not just for horizontal separation of powers, that is separation of powers between the different branches of government, the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The Constitution also makes allowance for vertical separation of powers. That is, separation of powers between the central branch, central government, and local and municipal governments. No, we know that the central government is supreme in that relationship. That is not unusual in Westminster operation, but it's a balancing. The most effective governance system is one that balances. So you balance central government superiority with separation of powers. And that is what we have not been seeing. So we're going to be talking a lot tonight about that. And I think you all are ready. So let's welcome Mayor of Georgetown. Mayor Mentore, good evening, my brother.
Good evening to you, and I'm hoping that you're hearing me as clear as ever.
Yes, I'm hearing you very clearly, and I am glad that finally I've been able to get you, and through no fault of yours, it's me. But as I said, you know, God don't come, but He just send, and here it is. Now, Mr. Mayor, let's get to the order of business immediately. Councilor passed, what do you all call it at the level of local government, a bill?
No, in this particular case, this is a policy of the institutional rate policy that we would have passed in this particular instance.
And the council has the authority to pass such policy.
Oh, definitely. Our Act 2801 gave us wide-ranging powers to treat with a number of issues. As we all know, under the Constitution itself, it speaks to the powers of the council under Article 75. Gives us the dominion and authority to be autonomous and to treat with local government issues. That is under Article 75. But on the Act itself, under Chapter 2801, Section, in this case, 206 to 209, but 206 itself speak of our ability to levy and to increase taxes and to come up with rates or a rating regime, as I would want to say, in relation to these issues. But this is a spent issue. This is a matter that was done many moons ago in relation to the particular policy or the particular law to treat with this particular issue in 2009 under the Hamilton Green-led Council, where they would have passed this particular decision of the council to have institutional rate implemented. And that was eventually advertised in the official gazette and made into law based on the decision of the council. So this is not an issue that is an old one. What we are basically, or as a new one, what we are basically doing now is trying to package it, trying to regularize it, trying to bring it into being in a proper way. But while we are also doing this, we are also trying to not only have one or two political parties benefit. We want to have all political parties to benefit, and even move to even other NGOs and trade unions, and maybe take it to the level where we talk about places like daycares or private schools, so that these will no longer be issues that you have to have a decision every so often. You apply based on the policy and be able to benefit from this. We see these as ways of growing the people within the community, letting organizations be able to reach their objectives, because under the particular act itself, under section 214 of the 2801, it speaks to organizations attaining their objectives. And if is it we will be hindering such issues to cause these organizations not to be able to treat with this, we would not have been doing a good or giving a good service to the citizenry of Georgetown. So it's really something that we are structuring and regularizing and bringing forth the decision of the council sometime in 2009, which was eventually ratified again somewhere around 2017 while I was there, and to bring into full circle this particular policy, and bring the life to this particular policy moving forward.
Mr. Mayor, you have clarified for us right off the bat. This is not a new matter. This matter goes back. It was passed since 2009. That's 15 years ago. It was gazetted in 2017 under Patricia Chase Green, who is now on the other side of the divide. But we didn't hear in 2009, and we didn't hear in 2017 all the noise that we are hearing now. And of course, it gave all of us the impression that this is something that you all came up with the other day, and it was meant to benefit the PNC, and you all are pushing it through. So I'm glad you clarified upfront that this is not a new matter. The second thing that you've done is that this thing is not confined to political parties. It includes non-governmental organizations, and you mentioned you want to broaden it to include daycare centers and other such institutions. So this matter is not a narrow matter that has to do with the PNC, APNU, AFC-led council attempting to do something about back taxes owed by the PNC. Now, you refer to it in your letter today as an institutional rate. Let me get the information, get the terminology. An institutional rate for non-governmental organization. Explain to us what you mean by institutional rate as opposed to other kinds of rates.
Well, what we've had over the years is residential rates, and we've had commercial rates. What these particular rates have been in place for some time, and in those rates they have. I have to go back. I want to go back as far as possible, but I might not have those details. But before the residential rate was changed to 40%, it was somewhere around 25, and then moved to 40. Then it eventually moved to 44. So you have a residential rate. Then you have a commercial rate, which is 275%. And when you talk the amounts, it's not that it's 275% of your current market value. There's a valuation for rating purposes, which was provided by the Valuation Division under Section 2804 of the Act, which gives you an amount, and based on that amount, we then multiply those amounts to be able to get the actual demand that persons have to pay, and so on and so forth. However, an institutional rate was eventually added to the system, and like I said, in good wisdom by the particular council at the time, knowing fully well that not everybody is residential, not everybody is commercial, but they serve a particular cause. They're not from a political standpoint, but they serve a cause, either providing services in a non-profit fashion. They're sometimes also serving in trade unions and all of these other places. They are not for profit. They're also, like I said, private schools and daycares and so on, which different person would have had to apply to the to the councils and ask for these kind of consideration, because even though they might be private in whatever way, they are also providing a public good. And these are things that have been put in place over the years so that we can have these kind of rates. So the institutional rate itself, which is 25% of that would be multiplied by that particular figure, that the 2804 or the Valuation for Rating Purposes Act provides, then you get a sum that you have to pay. So we've also explored, I believe when I was at the council early in 2017, 2018 or so on, or I think it's around 2016, I have to get the exact time. We've even explored industrial rates, because remember now we are a country, there's oil and gas, looking at a number of opportunities here and there where you have different kind of businesses and industrial kind of businesses within the system. We've been looking at that particular. I don't think we were able to formalize that particular rate, but it's something we will definitely be addressing so that we can have the different levels of rates. However, even if we will have those rates, we still have to get the buy-in as well of central government, because if we can have to advertise or make those rates into or put them into law, we'll have to get a bylaw to be able to create the one, as I'm saying, the industrial rate. But with the government that we have at this stage, they don't even want to fit with valuation for rating purposes, which hasn't been done officially since, or the rates hasn't been changed for valuation since 1997. You've had a situation where the law provides for you to provide valuations every 5 years. And every 5 years, you're supposed to have those revaluation process. The government who is being in the steering wheel, or who is being in power for 28 of about 32 years, hasn't moved to treat with those issues. It's only because our government, my government, the APNU FC, would have come into place and tried their best to fix a number of things and to address the issue of revaluation, which started somewhere in New Amsterdam, was to come down to Georgetown, where the Minister of Communities then would have named some Canadian company to treat with those issues. Obviously, the elections of 2020 came and not caused that to happen. But the fact remains, for you to be able to even sit with not the institutional rate, because that has already been done, the rate for industrial purposes, where you have all these industrial complexes, all these industrial activities happening in the city, where I'm not even sure if we get in, if those rates are residential, if they're commercial, or well, it can't be institutional, but it's either residential or commercial at this time. So those are things we'll be looking at and we'll be treating with, and we'll be placing significant emphasis on to be able to deal with these issues. At least, or at worst, we must at least get our commercial rate on these projects. But from an industrial standpoint, with oil and gas and all these opportunities, the council is being starved, and because of the system as it relates to valuation for rating purposes, we are not able to also benefit, because the government themselves will have to play a significant part in causing the industrial rate to be introduced. But you know what? You ain't even get that kind of a situation, because this is a method also as to how to starve the city for its resources, and to be able for us to do and provide the kind of resources necessary to the citizens of Georgetown.
To the citizens of Georgetown. So this policy decision that you are updating, because it was
Yes.
a decision taken way back in 2009.
Yes.
It is not about a special rate for political parties.
No.
It is a special rate for non-governmental organizations. And you are broadening the definition of non-governmental organizations to include things like private schools and daycare
Unions, yeah.
and so forth. So the headline and the hollering on the part of the PPP is what has confused people, because they started to say that, look, this councillors pass a special policy for special rates for political parties. Well, you if you count political parties in Guyana, they're not past 20. So I could not see the council passing a law taking a decision that was going to be benefiting 20 organizations. It just didn't make sense.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you've clarified that. Now, the second thing I want you to clarify is that this special rate of 25%, does it have to do with arrears that are owed by these organizations?
Well, it's automatic. Whenever the rate is put into being, or somebody applies for the rate, the valuation, like I said, these things are all hand in glove. There's a valuation for rating purposes. You have to go there and get the rating adjusted to reflect the nature of the institution and what assessment they come up with. Based on that assessment, we now enter it into our system to be processed. And the fact remains, the issue of arrears and demand is not an issue. Whatever comes out and it's placed in our system to be calculated, you will still have a situation where you'll have a demand, and if there's outstanding arrears or indebtedness, that will also be there, and the people will then be required to pay whatever's the demand and whatever is the interest that is applied to that demand.
There you go. In case you all are just joining us, especially you New Yorkers who have been out there partying today, we are in conversation with the mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Alfred Mentore, and we are discussing that mischievous headline, that mischievous rumor that was planted out there by the PPP, that the mayor and town councilor made a decision to reduce rates and taxes for political parties. The mayor is here and is putting that to rest. We are expected to be joined by the chairman of the Finance Committee, Lelon Saul. I think he's backstage, but he may not be ready. Mr. Mayor, let's continue to clarify a little bit more this issue. Does this decision have to go to the central government for a final say?
No, we don't need central government in any of this. This has been a done issue. This has been a spent issue. This has been a matter that was, like I said, ratified and decided upon at the Council of 2009. It was further gazetted outside of that period. It was further gazetted in 2017. And like you said, under the Chase Green leadership or administration. So I was a bit appalled when I heard her speaking to this particular issue and having selective amnesia on this issue, with her knowing very well that this issue was passed under the council when she was part of the city council, and also ratified again further in 2017, so to make it into law, or further make it into law, to make it a non-issue. So there's no need for any issue in relation to this. In relation to the rate that I am thinking about looking at and to bring it up as a policy document, and to have that looked at as it relates to the industrial rate, because of the nature of the system.
Yes.
In those different Houston areas and upper central Georgetown in the Water Street and these Lombard Street areas close to the river, there need to be a major relook or rethink on the issue of industrial rating, and not industrial rating, Yeah, we have the institutional rating, yes, and industrial rating. So
Yes.
we're looking at the industrial rating to see or seek to find a solution as it relates to that and to push that particular agenda moving forward. Um, we believe as a council that there must be balance, there must be reasonableness. And we as a council has to be able to look at that and be able to kind of find the kind of solutions for those persons and to make life a lot better. So within various communities and as we all know, parties operate with people. Parties are clothed with people. Parties do things within the community for people. And those parties, in order for them to attain their objective or obtain their goals, there's need for some kind of a flexibility. So we look likewise at the parties, likewise at many other institutions, even like I said, the old homes or those homes that look after persons. We'll be also looking at those persons to classify them or bring them within the framework of this kind of a consideration so that in the future there's no need for them to have to apply to a particular all over through some fancy process. They'll be able to, based on this policy and based on the framing of this policy, they'll be able to be fitted within the confines of it and allow for easy transaction to move that process forward. But while I say that, Mr. Hines, there are a number of persons that are not honoring their obligations. So we have, I'm not talking from that institutional standpoint, but outside of that institutional standpoint, there are a lot of corporate people that owe us. There are a lot of people within the government structure that owes us. There are a number of other people, even ordinary citizens that owe us. I've been checking a list that was provided by our Treasury Department only recently, and I've seen that list, which has a number of different areas throughout the length and breadth of the city, that speak of about over 15,000 delinquent persons. And it's a list that we obviously have to look at. It's a list that we'll have to treat with, and it's a list that we'll have to try and get to the bottom of it and to deal with these matters. I want to also say to you, Mr. Hines, that I heard the Honorable Vice President on this particular matter, and you did indicate him speaking on these issues. But one of my major concerns is that information of rates and taxes has always been a matter of confidentiality or
Hmm.
private level. I'm a bit concerned that even he went to the extent. I'm not sure where he got his information from, but I will need to have those answers at the next statutory meeting as to how information on people's rates and taxes could be leaked to any and everyone. And if is it that we're going to move or operate in such a direction and to want to deal with this issue in such an open fashion, and that the veil has been removed, or the veil of secrecy or the veil of confidentiality has been removed, then it will be a case where we'll have to look at the level of the council where a motion will have to be passed to allow for us to look at these various accounts, reconcile exactly who owes what, and we'll have to start making all, either from government side, from citizen side, from corporate side, or all these commercial businesses and so on, we'll have to make it public. So that's a decision we'll be looking at the next council meeting, where we were looking at these issues, um, treating with the issue of the confidentiality of persons' information. I try to get to the bottom of this particular issue as to what really transpired. And then when that information it comes to us, we'll be making a decision as it relates to this as to how we treat other future persons' confidentiality of information. If it's a case where it's the gauntlet has been thrown out and that it's a case where everybody information gotta go public, we will so do. And we will be making those information public and let those persons and all those persons who are not paying or honoring their obligation, maybe at the direction of the Honorable Vice President, to not pay the council its fair due so that we could be starved of resources. That is a decision we'll be looking at and have those persons' information also published within the open domain, so that everybody will know who are the persons that are not honoring their obligations to the council.
Mr. Mayor, and thanks for taking us in that direction. My first question is, does this institutional rate cover government, central government property?
Well, that is a good question. What we've been having is that we've been having a number of institutional persons outside of that, which we talk about churches, we talk about mosque and other Hindu and other organizations. Those are persons have been applying and, and, and benefiting from this institutional, or if we want to say, they have certain people have an exempt status, like the churches and mosques and so on. Then you have the institutional rate, then you have the residential rate, then you have the commercial rate. But we haven't had a rate for government per se. But now that you're talking about this, maybe we may have to see how we could frame it, or we should have outside of institutional, we should probably have governmental.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have a governmental rate, because what government has been paying is based on the a commercial kind of a rate, which reflects a 275%. But that point will be taken that maybe we could also have another level where we could have another injection of how we place government and how we treat with government. So that is something that we could bring to the table, and we could surely have a talk. But the fact remains that there are significant outstanding indebtedness by the government to us, and they have not been honoring the obligation which they should. Some agencies and ministries honor theirs, but I will be able to provide, based on the next statutory that we have, the kind of information that will be coming to the media and talking about who owe, who pay, and what's going on. We necessarily going to speak to the who pay, but we talk about those who particularly owe, so that we could get those persons and name and shame them, just like how the PPP wants to play politics with naming and shaming other persons.
Other persons. Mr. Mayor, this issue of the central government owing a lot of rates and taxes to the council predates your mayorship, and it's a sore problem. What is it when you all you've been on the council for a little while?
Yeah.
When you approach the central government and say, look, let's try to settle the rates and taxes owed by the central government, because if you get those rates and taxes, you'll be able to provide more services for the. What do they tell you all?
Well, I have had reached out to the finance minister on many occasions. We reach at various functions, and he always indicate that Mr. Mayor, outside of me being mayor, I was deputy, as you said, and but I've always been responsible for ensuring that the council pays debts and finding new ways in which we could get people to come to the turnstile, as looking at other innovative ways to generate and use our age-old assets to be able to finance the council's businesses. But whenever I reach with him from time to time, he's always very, I want to say, very optimistic about us finding a solution. He always suggests that we need to meet, but we ain't meeting. So it's some time now, I either as deputy mayor, now as mayor, we've met on a number of different occasions, and we've not been able to commit to a date when we could have a roundtable discussion on these matters. But I'm hopeful that we can do that shortly, and with all that is happening at this particular time, with all of these different transgressions or these issues flying all over the place, I'm pretty sure that in the shortest possible time, I believe we will have to have a meeting to treat with this issue about government honoring its obligation to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I have to ask this question. When the coalition was in office, was there any attempt to come good on paying the rates and taxes to the city?
Oh yes, they did their part. they would have honored a number of obligations that the different organizations that could fall under the government had. They've paid some significant sums, and obviously you know that there are many times we they had no business to go and ask for some bailout or no this and no that because these obligations were actually honored, and they have done so diligently. This government come back into being. They fell back on their obligation to the council, and there are some other accounts that weren't settled while the previous government was in power. Those are still there to be honored and treated with, but there are a number of ways in which they budgeted for those funds, and they ensure they send those checks as early as the budget was finished and finalized to the council so that we could treat with those issues. I have records to show that. So it's not like if the information in our system, in our treasury, will not reflect that. It will surely reflect that position so that we could know um, who are the people who trick with their issues and who are the people who bluff about these issues.
Mr. Mayor, you obviously touched on the fact that we are a transforming economy. A lot of big buildings are going up in and around the city. A lot of Guyanese who are coming home are looking at all these big buildings and say, Guyana is being developed. But
Mhm.
you have told us here that the city council has not been benefiting from these buildings because you've not been able to get the industrial revaluation and a kind of
Well, outside, outside,
reform. Go ahead. You go ahead.
outside of the industrial revaluation, the even those buildings that are there that are commercial in nature,
Hmm.
those persons have not been really and truly honoring their obligation. I will be providing those details sooner rather than later,
Hmm.
and it's a challenge we've had not only from the standpoint of our engineer and our engineers department, and we've tried to impose or instill these kind of rules or mechanisms to cause the engineer department as to when a building is finished or finalized. There's a part of the law that speaks of um, occupancy permission or occupancy certificate. And should he have followed that to the letter, and this is not something I talking about yesterday, we're talking about it for years, and trying to have these things in place. He's coming up with that kind of circling the wagon or circling the issues on this issue to the extent where if he allow for the people to occupy to grant the certificate, and for you to get the certificate you got to go and do a revaluation of the property, so everything is locked in a criteria or in a standard operation procedure to allow for this to happen. We've moved to treat with those issues. It's in the law to speak of it, and he has been avoiding it. These are the kind of challenges you sometimes have. When you try to move or discipline these persons and take that matter to the local government commission, you have another challenge where they now then play politics with the decision of how you treat with these issues. So there's a number of back and forth there. We try to sort things out or lock people into this particular criteria. It's like I remember years ago. I'm not sure if it happening now, but if for you to have gotten a gun license or any other particular license, you ought to have shown your how you up to date with your general tax, how you up to date with your return tax, how you up to date with whatever. These are things that you have to put in place to comply and to cause you to be able to be able to benefit from these kind of situations. Let's say even with the banks, we have a situation where if the person have to get a mortgage or they're selling your property, obviously you gotta get a compliance. So we lock even the mortgage into you're having to comply with the civic responsibility of the council. So these are things that different organizations buy into with us. But our own officer, one of our own officers, are not um, sitting with this because he's suggesting that if I should tie into some certificate, I sign in off on the people quality or the soundness of their building. And these are the kind of excuses you get from different persons. I said to him umpteen times, you are the city engineer of the council. You're protected by the council. Whatever you sign is on behalf of the council. So if there's any issues that relates to those issues, we will be able to treat with those matters from a council perspective. You are not the council. You are an engineer of the council. And these are matters that I'm saying that sometimes go in the direction which you don't want. And then when you try to really and truly push these things or to lock them into this particular criteria, you don't get what you exactly deserve. And that's how some people miss the net or miss the opportunity to tie them into this kind of a situation so that maybe all those thousands of buildings that went up, had we tied that kind of an arrangement in, I mean, I have came around and looked at it and looked within the law as to how we could treat with it. As a matter of fact, I have particularly raised that issue so that we could be able to deal with that, so we could have that criteria. But previous councils didn't do that, and maybe caused a number of persons to escape that net and to escape not honoring their obligation to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I have to move to a subject that is quite controversial. I'm sure you would anticipate. I'm talking about the vendors question. A couple of months ago, I happened to be downtown. I think I was at the court. I was at the court, and there was a commotion across the road by Demico, and I saw the journalists running over who were there at the court covering the matter that I was there for. And I went across, and I saw what you call it? Anyhow, this thing ready to forklift, a kind of forklift, ready to dismantle and take away the vending little snackets and so on of people vending in front there. And he was ready to lift, and there were women, they were hollering. And I got across and I intervened, and I asked the men who were operating the machine who authorized them to do that. And I think they said the city engineer. I may be wrong. However, I asked if there is if there is a supervisor on the ground, and they pointed to a gentleman, and the gentleman said he's following instructions. I said, who are you following instructions from? And I think he said the city engineer. However, somebody handed me a phone and gave me the number of, I think it's a city engineer. I called him and I told him what was happening. He said that they had given the people several notices, they weren't moving, and he's adamant that he's removing the structures today. I said, well, they are not prepared for moving, and they're asking for some time. He asked me how much time. I asked them, and they said at least by the end of the afternoon. And he and I agreed that this was about 1 o'clock or so, that he would give them up until 5 o'clock in the afternoon to get their things removed, which I assume they removed. What I learned there is that this removal of vendors is not necessarily something that comes from you. So clarify.
I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes.
Because what we've been trying our best to manage with the vendors, manage our roads, manage our various spots where those persons ply their trade. And as we all know, vendors is very important to the society, to the economy, to families, for persons who have to pay their mortgages, for persons who have to pay the main thing at courts, for persons who have to pay for the car loans and all these things. They are human beings who are plying a very innocent trade, and it's something that we have been looking at. We know for a fact if we can't provide vending spots or vending places for everyone, within those various markets and so on. But we're working on that, and I'll come to that at this after I answer this question that you spoke about. But the fact remains that the statutory responsibility doesn't lie with me.
Mm-hmm.
It lies with the town clerk and the engineer
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to these issues. So whenever the people sue in this instance, they sue the town clerk or the engineer who has statutory responsibility or within the 2801 outside of even what the council has to treat with to deal with these issues. So um, we try our best to see how we could stall on those matters, find ways in which we could treat with them. We've had these challenges of these mandamases that we've been having at the level of the court to have those portions removed even around Damico, even around Monsoirs and so on. And I've worked with either Monsoirs or the Damico to be able to to let it be staggered so that at least find a way to see how we can treat with these issues. So, but recently we've had some studies done. And this is not studies that started yesterday. This is studies that started last year, September, October, when I would have gotten into the office. And we've been working with persons that were led to us through the diplomatic community. We all know that you could work with the different diplomatic bodies and see how they could help you or how they could lead resources to you through either some technical person or so on and so forth. So we were able to get access to those kind of persons, and those persons were able to treat with us. This is one of the British firms that have been working with us to treat with the feasibility study of our Sabbath market, our bazaar, and also the vendors arcade mall. So those areas we're looking at, and to some extent, we're talking about our border market green. So
Mm-hmm.
now we could really and truly look at those issues, come up with which means we're coming up with real solution, coming up with a situation where we can create more stores, more opportunities for persons to go to those stores, more opportunities for those persons to have a place that they could call their own, a place that is an asset that they could transfer onwards to their family and the next family and on the other generational person. We are really and truly creating a way in which those persons can have ownership of something. They can't own the road. You can only use the road. So we want to be able to treat with those issues. And I strongly believe, as mayor, that the government themselves, because these persons not only didn't meet with me, they met with the government. They met with other agencies. They're dealing with finances and all of these things to look at these matters. But they will need some kind of a support because this alone cannot happen only by the mayor city council alone. It needs to have the bigger hand. And the bigger hand in this particular case is the government of Guyana, who is awash with money, so to speak. I've seen the numbers recently that speaks to 7.6 million US dollars per day we get from oil, which is equivalent to 1.58 billion dollars per day. And if you equate that over 365 days of the year, you're talking about over 580 billion dollars. Now, if you're having that kind of resources available to you, you have vendors who um, have families. You have vendors who have kids, who send their kids to school and deal with these kind of matters. It's obvious if you have any amount of conscience, you will know that you need to treat with these issues. You talk about this country itself as a country that is gonna be the next Dubai, the next whatever you want to call them, Qatar or whatever it is. You're talking about these facts, but in order for you to be able to achieve these facts, you got to hold the hands of the council and hold our hands together, and let's have a real collaborative effort to be able to treat with this. This is your chance. This is their chance to be able to make this possible. This is their chance to invest in something that we've done. We're working to finalize the feasibility study, which will be at their. We have the different stages of it, but the final aspect of it will be at their desk at some point. It will be finally presented to us. But the fact remains that you have to allocate resources, and those resources have to be allocated like yesterday, to be able to deal with these issues so that eventually over time, like you said, you would not have that issue that you had where you got beg for a day or beg for a moment. These people will be housed properly, they'll be put in a place that makes sense, and that they must be certain about their livelihood, or when they're going out there today, I ain't gonna hear some constabulary or some police come to move me or some city engineer come to move us. Because this will be a settled issue, and one where the only thing left for the city council to do in relation to this is enforcement and ensure that persons don't go back on the streets. But we have a street that we could clean, we have a place in which we can address, but all vending will happen at the Starbuck Market, to some extent the bazaar, to some extent the vendors arcade mall, and what else we could treat the vendor, the green of the border market. These are all plots and plans and projects that we've been working to put in place to make the place more viable, to make the place more comfortable, to make the vendors better, and to make everybody's life better. I mean, so this is the kind of work this council has been putting in place. I've taken up from a previous council, yes, but I'm leading in this particular example to be able to make the lives of those various vendors one that is worth it over time.
In case you're just joining us, we are speaking with His Worship, the Mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Alfred Mentore. We are covering a wide range of issues. We began with that vexed decision by the PPP councillors to give the public the impression that a recent resuscitation of a decision taken way back in 2009 to have a particular special rate of taxes and so on for non-governmental organizations. The PPP holler for fire in a cinema by saying the council has made a decision to reduce rates of political parties. The mayor tonight put that lie to rest. It's an old decision way back in 2009, gazetted in 2017 under Patricia Chase Green, who I understand now swinging she mouth the other way as though she doesn't know about that decision under her watch. We are now talking about the vendor situation. My colleague and comrade Ali Majid, it says, the government exercises control over the city council through the town clerk, city engineer, and the local government commission. And I think he's so right. And like I said, that experience I had in front of Demico with those ladies who were about to be, at their snackets dismantled. With all respect to the engineer, when I spoke with him, he was respectful, and it didn't take me 5 minutes for him to agree to give an extension of a few hours. Mr. Mayor, to watch the inhuman ways in which vendors have been historically treated. You know, when I spoke to those ladies that day, they said, they're depending on the sales for today to buy food to take home for their children tonight and to prepare things to come back to sell the next day. And they pleaded that the next 4 or 5 hours would make a difference to their children. Mm-hmm. And it was in that regard that I stepped in and spoke to the engineer. But as mayor of Georgetown, is there not a way that you can sit down with the town clerk and the city engineer and work on some humane way of dealing with vendors, even errant vendors? Because I am sure he wasn't lying, that he gave them several notices and they didn't move.
Like I've proffered at the council, some months ago, or I should say some years ago, of the parking meter scenario. In that scenario, we were we, at that time they were moved to have those vendors displaced and to use the road for parking meter. So now, if it was allowed for you to the road, remember there's roads and there's streets. All those different roads and streets fell under the parking meters regime to be able to treat with this issue. Naturally, those roads and those streets are property of the council. They're assets of the council. I checked that as part of the financial arrangement for the audits. That what we have to also provide that in the to the auditor as it relates to what is assets, what is liability, and roads outside of buildings that we have are part of the assets of the council. So while I was looking at that particular issue, and if we could have moved to have persons use these roads for parking and to treat with those issues, now there's no longer the parking meter concern, but those roads could be used and not necessarily leased, but used and people go in and retreat back or go back home and come back, but in a fashion that will not allow for them to build permanent structures. And I've looked at that to the extent where I spoke about that issue at the level of the council, and it's something that outside of us dealing with the treating with the town clerk and the engineer, it's a way of how we could find a solution or a common solution that is workable for all, so that we have a win-win situation. And that win-win situation is something that I want to explore, want to treat with, and will have to treat with for a period before I get to the point where we have the Starbucks market redevelopment done, and we have at least another 1,000 stalls there, another how much wherever. Because in the fact of these different stalls that we're talking about, you can have at least 2,000 to 3,000 installs within the various markets, and that will be able to take off the issue that we're talking about. But in between that issue, or in between us reaching to that level of where the country is at another level, we will have to be able to find workable solutions for those persons, and to find ways to not only find workable solutions with them, but also let the court understand where we at on this. Let the businesses also understand where we at on this, and how we can treat with these issues. And I say this in a particular way because many of those matters I mean, we're looking at this mandamuses that we have had, and those persons who went to court. I'm going to make even the future matters that goes to court, those persons who bring in the matter to court, the tax better be up to date. Because if you tax it up to date and you go into court for telling me about the use of the street and use of the parking, and you're honoring your obligation to us, we don't have a problem. So it's these kind of things that I am looking at, and you call them quid pro quos. You know, I'm the kind of guy, I came from a business sector, and I know about understanding how to deal and how to negotiate and how to talk to other people. You don't gonna pressure me into anything. You don't gonna bluff me into anything, because I'm not gonna allow myself to be to be brought to a level where I'm in a weak position. So I will use whatever structure or whatever strategy I have to be able to deal with these issues and to find the kind of results for people and those persons who apply in the case. So I agree with you that there are other areas that we have to keep on exploring. But remember now, the nature of this job, people are always at me, always at wherever. I'm always trying to find these resolutions. And sometimes things might not happen as fast as I would like it to happen. But you bet, I would like the vendors to know that I'm doing everything on my side to be able to make life better for everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, because of course that is a vexed question, a vexed issue. It has to do with poor people, and I am very glad that you are committed to finding some kind of humane settlement to this issue. Mr. Mayor, as you notice on this matter of the institutional rate, two councillors from the PPP wrote letters to the media and were on opposite PPP aligned shows, in a sense, slandering you and the council. What is the relationship between your side of the aisle and the PPP? Is it as tumultuous as it is at the level of the central government?
No, it's not as bad. It's very cordial, but from time to time they go off on a line to obviously appease their party and to do what they have to do to state a claim. But generally, the meetings are one where I give persons an opportunity on either side of the aisle to speak and to deal with matters of the council and deal with matters in an open and transparent fashion. I said this over and over. We don't have anything to hide. I even remember when they were campaigning and the Honorable Vice President said that one of the things he will do or introduce to the council is have live streaming. I asked every councillor, listen, you got anything in here to hide? We'll have live streaming of the meetings and to have it open to anybody who want to come and live stream it, because we don't have anything here that we want. We want to be as open and transparent as possible in our deliberations. What I could say to you clearly is that those meetings, when we have them, sometimes it's a little bit long because, again, of the back and forth or the opportunity I give to everyone to be able to say their view. And when I do such things, it works out to who get the best view. It's about the best view winning at the end of the day. It also comes down to a majority from time to time as it relates to where you need to vote on a particular issue. But I would safely say, for the many times we've been having meetings and the votes that we've had on a number of issues, you have both sides of the aisle voting, and both sides of the aisle voting in such a fashion that it seems like a more of a consensus kind of a position. So we've had issues where we, like this particular one here, where we didn't agree on, but when we had the division of the votes, we took our position over their position. But a lot of times when we vote on a number of matters, it's by consensus, and it's one where both sides of the aisle votes on this issue, and that we have those decisions going forward. So, but from time to time, you have those scenarios where it comes down to a majority, but most times it's a unanimous position of the council.
Very good. Very glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that that is your approach to leadership, a consensus, and it bodes well for the future. Mr. Mayor, CPL is coming to town shortly. Is Georgetown ready?
Well, what I could say to you is that we've been having some particular challenges with our garbage collectors. As you all know, we've had that battle with some of the particular garbage people who haven't been doing their job. I did a grand drive around today, and I've been calling on my solid waste person or a deputy director who's acting in the stead of the director, because the director is on leave, and I've been getting the various reports. I've been very stern with where we act in relation to our cleanliness. I've been stern in relation to where we act of piggybacking on the little cleanup that the government did the other day, so that at least we don't get back to the point of where the place get back to that level of stench. Again, that is not the doing of the citizen of the council. That's the doing of the citizens themselves, who are not doing what they're supposed to do and dumping indiscriminately about the place and so on and so forth. So those are things I've been treating with those matters, where those sites that we have to treat with. I'll ensure that I monitor them and for us to clear and clean them But the next step is to move to prosecute persons who are treating with these issues. We just can't continue to have people do as they like and as they feel, and to let the place in a certain way. We will also be working with the private sector through the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce to have all of their private sector businesses have receptacles right across their businesses and so on, and to be responsible for them as our contractors come and pick them up. You can't have the citizens within the residential area providing receptacles for you to pick up, and then you got your stuff dumped anywhere across the roads and so on for our guys to come pick you. Either have you have to have them in receptacles, have them properly organized, and treated with so that those contractors that we have come and pick them up. We'll also be working to have some more skip bins around the place for those vendors at strategic locations so that those persons could also place their garbage in a proper way rather than looking for the next place to dump it. And we'll be very watchful of this. And as we go along as well, I think we're working with some cameras and some um, different companies where we'll be treating with a number of issues concerning that so that we can have persons monitored and also locked up. So there's a number of matters we have to deal with and to sort out and to get people to comply. But the fact remains, we're reasonably on top of our game. I must say to you that I've spoken to the solid waste person, and they're treating with a number of issues. I don't want to say exactly what I said to him today and what I expect of him and the department, but we're on top of that in relation to how we clear and clean certain areas and how we get those areas very ready so that even while people visit our country, they'll be visiting a place that is cleaner, is healthier, and is a place that people will truly enjoy while they're here in Ghana.
The mayor of Georgetown is worship. The mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Alfred Mentore, you spent the last hour or so with us, responding to a number of questions. We haven't really exhausted all the issues we want to deal with. So this will ensure that the mayor comes back, and we've tried to get the mayor back here as often as possible because some of you are saying here that you don't hear from the mayor a lot. Well, the mayor can't force himself on the media. It is up to us, both on social media and on traditional media, to reach out to the mayor to get him to come to speak with you. Mr. Mayor, as we close out, any thing that you want to say that I didn't get to ask you about?
Well, I'm glad that you offered that final question. What I would like to say to those persons who might not see me, I'm in the medium of every other day of this in this country. For some reason or the other, some person, there's some interview, there's some whatever case. So I know I'm very much visible and very much there discussing matters of the council. Outside of that, I would truly like don't let us be the first and the last, because it's a long time we've been talking about this issue of me coming on this program, and it's not by my doing. It's more really by you who have not reached out the way you should to me and to have me on your program. So I'm glad to and to be on your program, and I will welcome any questions whenever you have them. Outside of that, to close, Mr. Hines, or Dr. Hines in this case, I would like to speak to a particular part of what some of the other things that we're doing, which I think we didn't get a chance to touch on. But in order for us to benefit from the fiscal transfer of there's a particular act, the Fiscal Transfers Act, that the city is treated with differently because of its geographic nature, because of the size of the population, as well as the taxes I think that they receive. Under that act itself, it speaks of you have to put certain things in place, and we've been working steadfastly to have the last 8 years of our accounts fully audited. It's something that should have happened a long time ago. I must say that even on the previous council. I know we've always had audits, but I didn't realize it was specific to this and specific to that and specific. So we have had the audits every year, but it was specific audits by the Auditor General on certain things they want to treat with. But I've moved as mayor of this council to, and with the support of both sides, so to speak. But there was some part of when we were moving to even decide on the particular auditor or the person to do our accounts, I didn't get the kind of support from the PVP councillors. But most of the time they did support, but at a point where we was going to finalize this issue, we were willing to frustrate it so that we don't have it. But what I could say to you is that that audit or that those accounts are being looked at from a financial standpoint, and for us to get to the last 8 years all regularized, and hopefully by the end of the year we should have that all ready. And as long as we have those numbers and situations ready, will then move to apply under the Fiscal Transfers Act, where we treat it differently as a city to, to get budgeted spending for the city. And with all this oil money that they have, or the country has, we should be able to be treated a lot different and to benefit from those funds directly so that we could be able to treat with a number of matters of providing better services to the citizens of Georgetown and Guyana as a whole, who will benefit from that, especially when you're having these different bridges. You're having a bridge by the Demerara River and Cometa Bean, Georgetown. You've got a bridge at Beach River and Cometa Bean. And all these portions will be heading to Sunday, and many portions head to Georgetown. So when they head to Georgetown, which is the capital must be able to hold its own. The capital must be able to treat with a number of matters um, that they have to deal with, and the kind of resources that you need to be able to operate the capital must be something that is worth the while, so that we could be able to, as I said, provide the services to the people of the city of Georgetown. I thank you again for having me, and I'm hopeful for us to do this again sometime soon, so that I could bring the citizens abreast as to what's happening at the level of the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I commit myself to try to at least get you on here at least once per month, once every 2 months, but I'm going to shoot for once a month to get you to report, because there are a number of questions here from our viewers that I would have loved for you to answer, but I'm committing myself to bringing you back at least once per month to report to the thing. Thank you so much for the time. Who are you backing for the CPL?
Guyana all the way. I know that I'm a patriot. I will ensure that Guyana wins again and to bring home the cup.
Mr. Mentore himself is a former cricketer, so he knows what he is talking about. And we also have to get him on the cricket show on Sunday night to give us some expert commentary there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. And to your audience, it's very nice to have the mayor here. And, it's a different kind of program because he's talking about managing a city in the worst circumstances. So I'm very glad that you all have been very patient. And I know you have a lot of questions that you wanted answered when the mayor comes back next month. And I've committed myself to that. We are going to get him to answer those questions. Our condolences go out to the relatives, the family, and the Guyanese community on the passing of Sashrida Ramphal, who passed away a couple of days ago in Barbados. Towering figure. Hopefully we'll be able to do a program around him in the not too distant future. Our condolences to his family. Tomorrow night, GHK Lal is going to be here, and I will see you all in your numbers again.